Welcome to Let's Talk Business. I'm your host, James Price. This podcast has been designed to address business pain points, often neglected, but if dealt with correctly, can really enhance business value and performance. I've had over 30 years experience in business, and I currently own JPO Business Proprietary Limited, a business valuation, advisory, and transaction firm. We help private business clients across Australia and internationally grow, change, and enhance the value of their businesses. This week, we're talking to Kevin Catlin. Kevin is president of Insight Strategies, a Californian-based firm that works with companies and individuals to improve their capability, culture, leadership, and team performance. Hey guys, welcome. I'm with Kevin Catlin today, and it's great to have him on board. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm well, James. Thank you. Very well. Nice to see you again.
It's lovely to see you. What's happening in California? US, is business brisk?
Well, I'm looking out over a small high school that my office is near, and cars are still running and people are coming and going. So, we're always, there's been a lot of crazy news in the US these last few days. So I'm never quite sure what's going to happen, but things are as they should be.
Very good. Look, it's great to have you on board, and I've had a lot of respect for your content and learnings around business through what you've done over the years. I mean, I guess we've got a bit of a connection. We run different businesses, but similar clients in the sense of their challenges and opportunities. Before we delve into what I think is a really interesting topic about teams and culture and what makes those tick, which is something I wanted to explore with you today. Can we just focus on you? Why are you here in this business? Where did it all start, Kevin? What made you get to the stage of helping businesses and individuals with their capability?
Well, it's not as I had some driving desire to be my own or be an entrepreneur. I really started because I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to run my own show. And all these many years later, the irony of that, of course, is that it's now that if you have clients, you have all of them are your boss. And so I have more bosses that you can shake a stick at anymore because everybody's willing to pay me as or organization is certainly willing, or they're the most important boss that we have. But in the mid 80s, I found myself in I'd been bouncing around a little bit. I just got out of the Army a few years before that. I wasn't quite sure what my path was, but I did happen to be in the right place at the right time, which is not a bad thing for any business. Yeah, and that is San Francisco at the start of the personal computer revolution. So I'm walking down the street. A dear friend of mine who I started my first company with, Steve Graziani, said he's getting involved in this new thing called the personal computer, and would I like to get involved? And I thought, sure, why not?
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Within 18 months, I'm sitting in the president of Bank of America's office, Chevron, Dolby Laboratories, McKesson Corporation, because at the time there were no computer experts. So us young guys could walk in and command the attention of these mega corporations because they wanted to know what this personal computer was going to do for them. Yeah. So that was our. And now still I'm working for someone else at this time. We're just distributors for their stuff. And in the naivete of a young person, I thought that's how things worked. So I thought, well, if I'm making all this money and having all fun doing this, I'll just start my own and keep all the money. Well, 5 years later, right? 5 years later, I never saw the close amount of money I was making a month before that. But so it took a long time, but that was really the beginning. And from then on, I became unemployable. I just every time I would start a business, I would get it to a point where either it was sellable or it failed, and then I'd go on and something else.
That's interesting. You mentioned failure. Was failure good or bad?
Well, it's funny you should ask. Right before I came on today, I was reading an article. We just had our Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, is a fine young man, and he played a hell of a game, but they lost.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm kind of reading about it, thinking, okay, so what's this going to be? It was from Inc. magazine, and he said, you either win or you learn. And the article was on emotional intelligence. They were trying to say that this is a young man of high degree of emotional intelligence, but that is a really powerful statement.
Yeah.
And it's not my statement; it's Jalen Hurts. You either win or you learn. And so I had at least 3 businesses fail over these 40 years, and I did learn from every single failure. In some cases, it was who I should be in business with. In some cases, it was how to manage cash flow
Yes,
because I didn't
yes.
understand that at the beginning. And in some case, it was do I have the right product at the right time? All 3 of those things conspired to make one of those businesses fail. But in each case, there was a great deal of learning from it. And so the first and the 5th business have done quite well.
Yeah, good, good. So those 3 things. So who you're in business with, your partner, the cash flow, and the timing of the products and services versus the demand, I guess. Is that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could go. I think one of the better thinkers on this, James. I don't know whether you agree or not, but Vern Harnish's "Scaling Up" was a very important book, and he talks about
Yeah.
4 things: right? People, strategy, execution, and cash flow, basically. And if you've got the right people, and that leads to the right team and the right culture, that's even more powerful than, say, the right strategy. Because if you just go out and grind, you're going to be okay. Drucker is
Yeah.
fond of saying, or was fond of saying, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, we've all heard that term before, but it's true. Most of our
Yeah.
products are commoditized to some degree, right?
I
Most of
think,
our products are commoditized.
look, I have to agree. I mean, it's a firm, as you know, part of our big focus is valuing businesses. And when we look at determining value, or financial value, there's a lot of things that go into it, but people and cash flow are probably 2 of the biggies. And like at the end of the day, a business is about not so much what's gone in the day before, but what's coming in the day forward. And I get the sense that there's great businesses and then there's supreme businesses, and part of the difference, it might just be the people factor and the culture factor. But let's get into that in a bit more detail. But I just wanted to pick up one thing from your dark past, and that is you spent some time in the army, or the armed forces. So tell me, how does that shape your capability in running a business today, do you think? Was there anything that you got from that experience that was formative?
Well, you'd have to think so, right? Because while the military is not a place where I believe you can really learn how to do business, it is a crucible for learning how teams either perform or don't perform. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all a team. And I even thought maybe discussing some of the things from a different. It's around culture and psych safety and how that is derived both in the military and in a place like the Ritz-Carlton. So we can play with that a little bit. But it shaped me quite a bit because there are 4 companies in my unit, and each of them performed at different levels. We were demographically the same, a bunch of rough and tumble. In this case, it was an all-male unit, but a bunch of rough and tumble kids from various parts of the United States. And yet, why would A company do that much better than C company? And it very much, even in my lizard brain at 18 years old, I could see that it was the leadership. I could see it was leadership, and those guys they stood a little taller, and they bounced a little higher. They just had a culture and a way in which they went about things that was really admirable, and it came from their leader. They had a superb leader. So there was that. And then if you, as a reader, I've read military history my entire life. You see how leadership, i.e., the precursors to culture, can make human beings do superhuman things. And a military is a place where you can sort of see that because, I mean, let's be honest, it's life and death. No one's going to get, in their cubicle here. So it's a little harder to see that kind of drama unfold, but you certainly see it in the military. And so leadership is tested.
Yeah, let me pick up on that. Leaders bounce a little higher, right? I mean, they do. It's very hard to to sort of write down some of those special factors, isn't it? Do you find? Like, I mean, is every leader different, and is that their point of difference, and is that their strength? Or what from your experience, back in the army, but then now dealing with clients, I mean, what makes them shine? What makes them different, do you think?
I've been using this term in my coaching practice a lot recently, and they're just a much more deliberate in how they approach all the aspects of what their unit or their organization or their team does. I mean, they have a plan. The idea is that these people, these messy, and I include myself among them and the leaders among them, these messy, chaotic people have to have some sort of guidepost or plan. I think we as a species really like to be heading towards something that is meaningful, whether it be a touchdown or a profit margin. And the great leaders are deliberate about that. And they're deliberate about the process as much as the end result. The process being, here's what we're going to do. Here's what you can rely on me to do for this. Here's what I'm going to need from you. And this clarity produces, again, whether it's the perfect plan or not, at least it produces that everybody is operating in sync and kind of knows their marching orders. And so I haven't met a good leader that doesn't at least practice deliberate leadership. And the ones that I coach, I talk about, you're a very good leader, but you're doing it by instinct rather than a plan. And so I would say that's part of it. They are, to a person, they are, they don't have to be, I'm an introvert by nature. And so they don't have to be, but in order to do my work, I've had to be much more outward focused. I don't care if the leader's quiet or is by example or is a little bit more of the inspirational speaker.
Yes.
They do. It has to be clear that the people are important to them, because we'll give you 9 to 5 because you pay us for 9 to 5, but we won't give you 7 to 11 unless you're that kind of leader where I'm going to actually give that kind of extra energy to. And it's learnable and doable, and some people just haven't. Some struggle.
Yeah. There's an X factor though, is there? Or do you think that anyone can be a leader if they really want to?
I don't know. I've spent many years trying to figure that out. I do know that my spider sense will tell me sometimes when I'm coaching somebody, this is just not right for them. And my coaching mentor is Marshall Goldsmith, and he won't even take on that kind of project, where I tend to have that white knight syndrome of thinking that I can fix anything. But I've seen it in so many different places, James, that I don't think that it's necessarily, I know that it's not set up because of circumstance. It's set up because the organization, the people decide that's what they want, they go get it. And it's usually a leader that is the catalyst to that. And I can think of several great examples of that, but we'll see if we get to that as we go.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, if I look at team performance, often I see, the performance being driven by the leader, but then really good teams, they almost seem to have a proliferation of leaders in their own right. Not to say that they're not, it seems to be a way of thinking, people taking initiative for their own performance, so to speak. It's almost, it's a key leadership quality, I feel. But then there's things like, if we dip down into team performance, I mean, being able to fail, we talked about that before. As a leader, developing a culture where it's okay to fail and, you're not going to be punished and persecuted for it, that's actually part of the learning and development process. I see a number of businesses where I talk to the owners and leaders about that, and they think that they've got a culture like that, but actually, it's pretty hard in business. If things go wrong, you've got to look for a scapegoat, so to speak. So that's a tricky. I feel that's a really tricky culture to develop, but so powerful, because if suddenly people feel like they can extend themselves, and failure is not necessarily a bad thing, then the world's their oyster in terms of development, right?
No, Jim, the there's so much here. I mean, this is what I spend all of my time thinking about and speaking about and teaching about. And when you think of it, I'd love to talk about culture because again, it's the secret. And then the component of culture that's the secret of that is what's being commonly called now psychological safety. And this idea of psychological safety, you mentioned that people still make mistakes. Psychological safety is let me tell you a quick story. Project Aristotle was a project done by Google, right? You've read up about it.
Yeah.
And really, this is, I mean, who isn't big data if it isn't Google? So here's Google trying to figure out why this work group outperformed this work group, why these bricklayers laid more bricks than these bricklayers. And they went through it. And there's a lot of nuances to it. And I'll let your listeners look up Project Aristotle and do the deep dive on it. But what they really came down to was the top line out of it was that there was psychological safety, that people spoke to each other. And there's these marvelous stories about when an environment doesn't have it. One that jumps out at me is that because I'm working with cancer surgeons, there's a story of, and this is a true story of a nurse, and she's walking down the hallway at midnight. You may have heard this story before, but you know me, I'm a storyteller, and she's walking down the hallway, and she comes across a chart, and there's Mr. Smith in there, dealing with cancer. She pulls the chart, she looks at it, and it doesn't look right. Something's not right. This test and this medicine they're going to give him the next morning seems over the top to her. But then she remembers that Kevin Catlin, Dr. Catlin, who she called 2 weeks ago, ripped her head off for disturbing him at night because Dr. Catlin wants the nurses to just handle it and is already feeling overworked and overburdened and doesn't want to hear it. Figure it out and deal with it. Well, this was a perfectly lovely nurse whose heart was in the right place, but she puts the chart back and walks on. And the tragic end to that is that it was not the right therapy for this person, and they died. And that is psychological. That is a lack of psychological safety. That is people who are pushing for excellence, because you have to push for excellence in healthcare, but also where people are afraid to make mistakes. A psychologically safe environment in healthcare or in computers or in valuations does not make less mistakes than other organizations. They make more, but it's really not that they make more. They simply talk about it more. They don't hide them. Yeah. So when I first read that, Amy Edmondson is a marvelous expert on psych safety. Any of your listeners should look her up, and she'll say that the counterintuitive part of that is that they don't make less mistakes, they make more. But it's really not that they make more, they just report more because those mistakes are seen as learning tools. They don't kill the messenger. And so psych safety is the bottom line. And then, if I might, when you think of psych safety and you think of culture, I can take two completely different organizations. The Ritz-Carlton, for instance. You have one in Australia, you have one in Perth and in Melbourne. I trust you, if you go to either one of those, you're going to be treated like a king when you walk in the door. Yeah. The door person is going to open that door for you, probably know your name. When you need something, there's going to be somebody who jiffies up and makes sure you have it. And they're going to be doing it with a sense of aplomb and decency that you don't see everywhere. Why? Well, one of the linchpins to Ritz-Carlton is they called themselves ladies and gentlemen serving other ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So I mean, and then those words, if they were just words, if that was just their motto, would ring hollow if they didn't act that way. Or when they acted like ladies and gentlemen, taking care of others, ladies and gentlemen, nothing was made of it. And yet Ritz-Carlton makes a big deal. When Kevin Catlin, cleans up after Jim Price after his big party and makes sure everything is just so, guess what? My manager is going to come around and say, well done. And we're going to talk about it the next day in our meeting. Hey, Catlin really jumped on this. And so not only do they mouth the words, they live the words, and they reward the kind of behavior. And think about it. That's pretty easy coaching from a leadership standpoint, is rewarding the kind of behavior that you want people to exhibit.
I was just going to reflect on that. I mean, it's a question. Is the leader servicing the team, or is the team servicing the leader? And I think the word service, right, ultimately, I think a good leader is one, they're there pretty much to service their team. And I think, leaders, there's a bit of an old way of looking at leaders. They're always up top, right? So it's like they've got a team and the team's got to do whatever they've got to do for them. But actually, I think the reverse is a more modern way of looking at the task of a leader.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, the people in my organization know I'm the president of the company. They know I'm the president. They know I also have a CEO, and her name is Terry Fisher. And the fact, and they probably are aware that I make a little bit more money than they do. And they're probably aware that certain decisions are made by me because I'm in the position to make those decisions. But they're also aware that I would crawl over broken glass to make sure they were taken care of. They also are aware that when we talk about our organization, I make sure that the organization serves them as much as it serves me. And they're not unclear on that. Now, COVID tested us all on that because we were, we had a choice to either close our doors, Terry and I take our money and run, lay off a bunch of people, and we didn't do any of that. And so, I'm not a saint, but at the same time, to be a good leader, you definitely have to put your people first. You want to be a good leader, have good people, take good care of them. The rest tends to take care of itself as long as your product is halfway decent. Do you agree?
I would agree. And I think, like, for me, it comes down to, and you just sort of alluded to it, it's having your people's back, right? And those people knowing that their leader has their back. It's surprising when there is truly a feeling of that in a team. It drives a whole lot different culture because it unleashes individual capability. I feel, it's okay to take initiative. It's okay to step out, because the barriers. It's back to the psych safety issues that you were saying we were talking about before, yeah.
Yeah, and Jim, think about this too. I knew William Swenson, Captain William Swenson, well before our friend Simon Sinek started talking about him in his books. But talk about the epitome of psych safety. So here's this group of Army Rangers and Marines walking through the valley in Afghanistan, and they start to get massacred. They are taking fire from both sides and the front. I won't bore you with the long story of it, but they're in deep trouble. And before the helicopters finally show up, they're being killed. And so we start seeing these pictures of, and this will have a point to it very quickly. We start seeing pictures of this dust flying because one of the helicopters, one of the guys had a GoPro helmet on. And so we're seeing the cacophony of war happening in real time. And we see this guy holding this other guy, taking him to the helicopter, dropping him in there. And then the oddest thing in the world is that he leans over and gives the guy a kiss on the side of his face in the middle of a firefight in Afghanistan. And he lays him down and he goes back. And he goes back and forth, and they retrieve every single person, dead or alive. And for that, Swenson got the Congressional Medal of Honor, which is our country's highest honor for service, right? And so, safety. This is important because why would he do that? What kind of superhuman can turn around and go back into the face of fire, or run into a burning building, or lift a car up? And why would he do that? It's for the very reason you just said. It's because, and when you ask these guys, men and women, why did you do that? There's one answer that comes out more than any other, and that is that they would have done it for me. And so it's not some love of flag or patriotism or this or that. It's because they know that unit, somebody would have come and done it for them, so they had no choice. That is psych safety manifest into the most harshest environments. That if someone will come and do it for you, you better get your butt out there and do it for them.
It's a very special story, right? But I think you've just helped us illuminate the intangible about culture, from a particular angle. I mean, there's an element of passion, there's an element of empathy, there's an element of that. As you say, what would I expect someone else to do for me, so to speak? I mean, with that kind of culture, a business or an organisation of any sort, they're going to go far, right? Like once you've got that, that's well, I don't think it's something you can take for granted. But do you find you work with businesses that have got those types of culture? What do you see, Kevin, in those clients? Are there other differences?
Yeah, I mean, you would expect, James, that people come to us when they're trying to get that. People come to us and say, "We'd like you to fix this department," or "This group of managers need to do something better," or "We've got these up and comers and we'd like to train them." And inevitably, 75% of what they're talking about is we're struggling in our culture, and we're bleeding good people, and we've got this discontent over here, and we can't seem to, and so once you start to fix those things, and it's not a magic wand and it's not a short-term fix, but once you do start to fix those things, then the cause and effect comes into play of people to stick around more. People don't leave good cultures for an extra buck an hour. People don't leave a strong team. They what they leave is poor leaders, poor managers, and stupid processes. That's what they leave. So there's a tremendous ROI to that. And yes, again, look at the first job I got out of the Army was in a fish market. That is not a glamorous job. I don't know, James, if you've ever worked around that many fish.
But I've worked in abattoirs, so similar to fish markets, but I haven't worked around fish.
It'll sour you on the taste of fish for a while afterwards. Trust me on that. But think about it. I mean, obviously, you're not getting paid a lot of dough. Obviously, it's not a glamorous job. Obviously, you're going to smell like fish a lot of the time, and yet there's a group of people, and again, this is a storytelling. You've heard of these folks, and right now, I checked the weather in Seattle before our we came on. It's 47 degrees and it's raining, and it'll be 47 degrees and raining for the next several months because that's what Seattle is. And yet there's a group of guys down there at the Pike Place market who decided they wanted to become world famous. And so in order to become world famous, they decide, well, every day they're going to play and have fun. Well, they're a bunch of fish guys. How are fish guys going to play and have fun? Well, you know what they do? They throw fish, they yell, they flirt with the girls, the boys, depending on their bent, and they play. And then they determined that every person they came in contact with, they were going to be there for that person. Me and you, doesn't matter if all this stuff is going on, it's me and you, James. Let's talk fish. And then right, and they were going to make every person's day. If a child was there, there's this funny stuff they do with these fish to spook the kids, and the parents are having fun. So here's a fish market with a crowd of onlookers around it, with a lot of people walking up to buy their fish.
Yeah.
And if you know the Pike Place market, there's several other markets there. Now,
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Those markets sell just the same fish, just as good a fish, and the people there don't have to do all this hooting and hollering. But the culture of this particular place is, if you came to work there, the leaders wouldn't even have to say, look, we're going to choose our attitude every day. We're going to bring ourselves in a big way every day, because the other people who work there would do it for them. That is leadership nirvana. When you can have the team of people, making it happen for you. I asked, what's the best rugby team in Australia? Who are the Golden Wallabies? Are they well known?
Well, they are well known. The Wallabies are well known, but they need to improve their performance of late. They've won a few World Cups, but they're going back a few years now. So there's time to lift up, right?
And so I'll use the Kansas City Chiefs, because we just saw them. I mean, if you played for either of those coaches that were on the field, you were going to play a certain way. Every single NFL team has roughly the same talent. Those two have culture. They have passion. The coaches don't have to tell the guys to show up early. The guys are telling the guys to show up early. The coaches don't have to tell the guys to stay, not go out too late and drink. The guys tell them, hey, during this time on this football team, here's how we're going to do it. I mean, that's the culture that has everything with leadership, but then you don't have to babysit. It's a remarkable thing.
It's an interesting analogy, the footy analogy, and you know, that was a very close game between the Chiefs and Eagles, a cracker really, wasn't it? I mean, I support a team here in Sydney called Parramatta, and there's also a very good rugby league team called Penrith. And Penrith beat Parramatta, my team, in the grand final this year, or the year just gone. Now, if you look at them on paper, both teams have very good rosters. If you look at the individual skills and capabilities of each of the players. But what's the difference? You know, I mean, my team has a cracking good roster, and yet the other team, dare I say it, Penrith, were able to get their stuff together as a team. And it's, yeah, what's the secret of that? I mean, obviously leadership is part of it, but is it an innate understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of each other? Like, is that part of sort of, you know, bringing a team together so that it can operate effectively? What do you see when you're in businesses in that respect?
I think the best way to do that is to say what I see where the problems are. For instance, if I were to ask every player on Penrith, did I pronounce that okay?
Yes.
What was the other one?
Parramatta.
Parramatta. If we're asking both those teams on a scale of, you know, thinking about the finest team you've ever been on in your entire life, other than the team you're on right now, and they'd come up with all these teams. It could be a school choir or a baseball team they were on, whatever, right? I'd say at a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate that 10, 1 being terrible and 10 being the best? I'm going to get some 8s, some 9s, and some 10s. And then if I said to Penrith, I'd say, on the scale 1 to 10, how are you doing as a team? Well, what do you mean, Kevin? No. How are you doing as a team? A scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably going to get around 5 or 6 because they inherently know that something is missing about the team that we all dream about, the team of our dreams, we call it. And then I'll say, where should you be? And I'll get an 8, 9, or 10. And then the question becomes, what would you be doing as a team if you were an 8, 9, or 10 versus a 5? And that's where, so I can't say, here's what you should do because it's going to be different per team. But I will get the right answer. They'll say, well, we'd be barbecuing together more. I know as humans rather than just as players, maybe. Or we have a relationship with our management versus it feeling like kind of us and them. Because a management in a group of people are a team, and right. I mean, it's an offense and a defense is a team. So I can't answer your question. What do those teams do? I can answer your question. And how does a team figure out what it should do?
Yeah. Where the gap is, right?
And once they answer that, now they're obligated to give each other permission to do it. And that means if Kevin is stepping outside of it, I have raised my hand and given permission. People say, Kevin, you said you were going to start making team meetings on time, like the rest of us, even something as simple as that. And so it just becomes sort of a shared experience that once is there, if the leader can take care of it, nurture it, reward the behaviors that exemplify it, then you're in Fat City. If I can even say Fat City.
To get to Fat City,
I have to bleep that out.
Yeah, no, but to get to to get to a culture that's revered, and it's, you know, in a way, a culture is almost a journey, right? It's not necessarily a destination, I think. But what, you know, just taking that a little bit further, thinking about the leaders of teams in business that you come across, business clients coming to you saying, listen, we want a better culture, we've got problems here, we've got problems here. What are the things that those leaders or owners, do you think, need to forego or, you know, I mean, just my business culture is stuffed. Well, is it the team? Is it the business? Is it my leadership? Is it my manager's leadership? Um, eh, in order to get the most out of that journey, what has a leader got to forego or trade off or reconsider? Do you think? Like, are there barriers that you see at the top to getting it actually go beyond talking about I want a good culture? If you know what I'm saying there.
I do. It's a tough one, James, because it is again so subjective. But again, I hate to do this, speak in parable, but I'm working with someone right now, head of a very large company, and a powerful leader. People are scared of me, so powerful they're scared of him, and they will grind for him hard from 9 to 5. He realized he wasn't getting what he needed from them, and so many of the leaders make the mistake of thinking what got them here will continue to get them to the next place, the next phase. And it is a
Yeah.
huge mistake. Their ability to grind and push and shove and give up moments with their children are all fine and well. God bless you. Way to go. But it's, maybe for Joe Blow over here, maybe he cannot do that. Maybe that's not even how he's made. And so
Yeah.
these are very naive people when they think that everybody's going to respond the same way that they did to the stimulus of getting power and getting paid. And I have to disabuse them of the fact. Also, some of the toughest leaders to work with are the smartest ones. I work with a lot of engineers and scientists. They are so damn smart that they want to sit and think through the problem. Well, is there anything, tell me how you're going to think through and make logic out of a human being. If there's anything more illogical than a human being, I don't know what it would be. And so these guys have a lot of trouble. They've spent their entire lives being loved on and graded with A's and with promotions and so forth. And all of a sudden they're in front of people. And it's like they got a snake in their hands. They don't know what to do with it. And so the persons who don't understand that they're going to have to self-reflect and appreciate that what got them here is not going to get them to the next phase, that what drives them is not going to necessarily drive others, and that pure intellect is not worth jack when it comes to dealing with people, because intellect is, who cares? You're okay. You're the smartest guy in the room. Now, how are you going to get a bunch of people to get up and go give you 100%? So I'm sorry if that's not a rich enough answer, but that's what I got.
No. It's good. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I've got a couple of perspectives on that. One is in a much younger age, I had a career in banking and finance, right? And corporate world, national, international companies, very senior position I was, with a large team. But back in those days, as a young senior exec, I thought that everyone in my team was the same, and I just needed good process, good discipline, and good performance management, and drive and passion about vision, and we'd deliver. And we did deliver. But what I learned, though, is that they're not all the same. Everyone is different. Everyone approaches things differently, and that's not necessarily a weakness. That's a strength if you're prepared to unlock it, right? But it takes a different type of leader to individualize the team and then weld the team together. And I think in the fullness of time, that's probably one key learning that I've had. But I deal with a lot of small and mid-sized businesses where the leaders, because they've been perhaps developed in a time similar to me, they look at their team as a homogenous group. And I think for a leader really wanting to change the culture sustainably of their business, you've got to step back and say, well, actually, that's not the case. There are individuals here, some with strengths, some with weaknesses. They've all got expectations and issues, but together and welded together, they can deliver, some very significant outcomes. Yeah.
We have proven with simple exercises the power of synergy over and over again. I just wrote the word trust while you were talking. That's, I was saying, if you want to change a team, you have to have the trust. Even when you make mistakes, they'll trust that you're trying to do the right thing. If you don't have trust, you could be doing everything right and it'll never work.
Yeah.
And then your story, what you reminded me of I think an important metaphor in that I tell my managers that I work with, you want to be a great manager, think like a chess player, that each of your pieces in a chessboard move differently. And your job is all the while you're dealing with the chaos of your own pieces moving in all these odd ways. You've got someone else trying to eat your lunch on the other side. And so it's I think a very apt metaphor for management is that you're turning chaos into a finished product on a daily basis. Then I say, all right, let's up the game one more time. Now, if you want to be a great leader on top of that, what if each of those pieces had free will, where the knight all of a sudden wanted to move like a bishop? And you had to convince the knight you needed her to move like a knight today.
They all want to be like they all want to be like queens.
Yeah, that's right. And so I found that a good metaphor for my own thinking is that, okay, I'm working with managers today. How can I get them to the point of thinking like chess players? And then I'm working with managers who want to be leaders. How can I make them think like the good chess players they've already proven themselves to be? They turn chaos into a finished product every day. Now, though, they're dealing with pieces who have free will. They have to get them to want to do it that way. And most people can kind of understand that.
Yeah, I like that analogy, Kevin. I love listening to some of your stories, and I have done for many years. There's a passion there, Kevin, in what you do, or that's what I get, right? In business with your clients, you see various degrees of passion, I'm sure, in leadership. I mean, where does your passion come from in the work that you are doing now? Like, is it? I mean, it's a bit of a deep question, right? But I'm interested to know, like, why do you like doing what you do? Oh, that's my assumption. Hearing you talk about stuff, yeah.
Are you kidding me? What I get to do is extraordinary. Even when I owned the medical software company, I didn't really enjoy it. I enjoyed it because it paid me good money and I was the boss, but it wasn't what moved me. If they would have paid a teacher, would I get paid? Then probably I would have been a teacher. James, my only thing I think is that I've always been a person who wanted to do cool stuff and then had a lot of doubt. And so I just keep working at it. I come from very humble background, inner city Detroit. We were very poor. I don't want to be poor anymore. I like people. I have a soft spot in my heart for people because I have made so many mistakes and been in so many situations where it could have gone sideways, and yet here I am. I got two great kids, a happy marriage, and work that I love to do. So I am very passionate about it, and but I'm also passionate about pickleball, and, I'm passionate about basketball, and I'm hanging on to the sport with my fingernails at 64 years old. So I think I'm just kind of a passionate person in general. But teaching, again, if you were to see my group of people, I will send you a picture of my group of people on Monday, and you're going to see a bunch of faces of folks who don't even know that it's not a big secret to be successful. They don't even know. They're so far down the line in terms of the Pygmalion effect that they truly believe that what they've done is all they can do. And I just know for a fact that's not the case. And I've had a chance to work with hundreds and hundreds of people now. And because we got into all this cool stuff like Boeing and Microsoft and Amazon and the MBTA, which is the transportation arm of Boston, where the people who go to the MBTA are off the streets.
Yeah.
They're getting more and more educated, but they're like me. They're blue collar, rough and tumble people, oftentimes, who I can see the faces. I can see their faces, and I know that there's a possibility that spending some time doing this could change the arc of a couple people's lives. That's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it is. It is very cool, and it's I think it's certainly why I do what I do as well from a different angle in terms of valuation. And I see I got an example of a business, right? And it's in the industrial services sector, and it's only a small business. It's a juicy business. There's probably 40 people in it, 30 mil turnover, and earnings before tax. Let's call it 6 mil a year, sometimes 8. So in that range. So a solid performing business owned by two partners, two shareholders. Now, those shareholders have owned that business for 30 years and they have worked like dogs. I talked to them the other day. They said, one of them said, we've hardly had 2 weeks holiday, right? Now, but on the paper, the business is financially very successful. It's delivered a lot of money to their back pockets. Anyhow, they want a succession plan. They want me to value the business. They want to sell the business. And it's interesting, the difference, the trade-off between people, culture, and the strength of a team versus the financial aspect. Because here's a business that I'll value, and it'll get a reasonable market multiple on earnings, but it's severely restricted because the leaders in that business are the people driving it, and there's 2 of them, but the rest of the team are on for the ride. They haven't spent time focusing on the team. They've spent time on the money, and they've managed their money very well. But then when you go to sell, is it sustainable? Well, it's obviously not, because they're going to move out. They haven't built a culture that's sustainable, a team that's sustainable. So. And it's tricky, right, for small and mid-sized businesses. But I think that that interplay between the money versus the strength and power of the people and the offering is quite important to really get true value. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's over my head, my friend. It's over my head. I mean, the idea of I think in many ways, even though our people are superb. As soon we get posed all the time. When people come through Insight Strategies, they go on and start their own companies, or our managing partner, Karita Cree, God bless her, just got a magnificent job in DC, heading an entire training department. So she couldn't say no. Point is, I don't know where, I don't have any input on that. That's your business. You could probably look at us and tell us what we're worth, but I think that in many ways, certainly our people could go out, and we are preparing a couple of them for taking over. But Terry Fisher, the CEO of the company, she's still working, the hardest working person in the organization. I'm trying to take more time off, and she's married as well, which is an interesting. Run the company together, married, but. Anyhow, James, I got nothing to add to there, because that's what the smart people do, like you, figure out what businesses are really worth.
Well, it's hard to put, what we're challenged with every day, and more so, right, is at the end of the day, when we value a business, we've got to put a financial number on that business. But increasingly, that number is either enhanced or diminished by our assessment of the strength of the team, its performance, its culture, and its sustainability. And it never used to be that way. We would assess, the employees and the org structure and their strategy, but increasingly those intangibles around culture, how they fit, are they sustainable, other than the owners? Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. I would imagine there's company after company that had a great gig, but it wasn't that once they were sold to someone else, or they just couldn't work because the culture wasn't there.
Absolutely. It's a big issue. Hey, I think we should leave you to your later hours in the day, but before we leave you, you're talking to a business owner, they come to you and they say, listen, my team's only ordinary and I want to improve the culture, and I want them to feel like they own the business and they're running it and working together. What's a key message that you give that business owner up front before taking them on? do you think? You know, how do you qualify that that they're in the mindset that they're going to get value out of what you're about to help them with?
Oh, I have to hit them right up front with if the owner and the leader believes that this organization is underperforming, my first question is what's his part in that or her part in that? I mean, does he or she believe that they play some part in that? And so I would probably begin with, many times people ask me to go fix their people. They'll say, why don't you and I talk for a bit? Right? Why don't we talk about how things are coming down from the top? And it'll make a few people aback, but most people who get to the place of you or are leaders of their organizations, they know when they bumped up against themselves and that they need help. So my first question is, how are you bringing yourself to your organization? And then I always would assess, not what the owner says. I would go down to the rank and file, because if the rank and file and the owner are saying something completely different, then they've got a disconnect right there that's got to be bridged.
Yeah. Kevin, thanks very much for your contribution today. Really appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you. Wow, wasn't that a great session with Kevin Catlin? Culture has always been a bit intangible to me, understanding what drives it, what makes it special, and how to develop it, and how to develop a strong team around that culture to increase business performance and business value. Some great insights from Kevin Catlin around taking your business further with culture and team performance. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram at JamesC_Price. And if you're up for improving your business, gaining access to knowledge, insights, our team and consultations, join our online membership portal. Visit jpabusiness.com.au.